From Here Begins Reform, August 21, 2019, by Abbas al-Baghdadi. Some wishes are not impossible, but the case indicates that most of them did not come to the mind of the official and were not in the calculations of the elite confrontation. What is wrong with relicensing rounds and curtail the participation of foreign workers and reconsider the amounts they charge compared to the Iraqi worker? Will there be a decision by the decision-maker to improve the situation and ensure the requirements of decent living away from the power of foreign companies that treat the people of the country as slaves? Will we find those who adopt spending cuts through the restructuring of state institutions that suffer from sagging and the abundance of job titles and special grades? Since those who manage the institutions of martyrs and prisoners at a special level, as well as the Hajj and Shrines Authority, and the Shiite and Sunni Endowment and the rest of the endowments, what is prevented from collecting these bodies in one ministry, and make each body a general directorate within this ministry and be represented in the provinces at the level of the department? So we will get rid of 7 officials of the bodies will also be dispensed with more than 80 general managers. Is it difficult for those who swear to work on the Constitution to address the legal breach committed by the Prime Minister when he omitted the export of the region's oil by 250,000 barrels per day since January 1, 2019 until now, considering the money coming from the oil sales is the money of the Iraqis and not a particular person or entity? If the state has reached the level of sufficiency and did not need those funds, let the faithful law to allow distribution to the people, especially the unemployed, as salaries or grants. Salary scale is also in need of a new law that eliminates the big difference between the salaries of some ministries, and reduce the gap between the salary of the official and the employee. It must be revealed the fact of those who receive more than 1 or 2 salaries and perhaps more. We need the audacity of an official to indicate the total salary of Iraqis during 1 year. There are those who say that the amount of up to $50 billion, while the salary of Turkey, which has a population of 90 million people, is 20 billion because of the fair and deliberate distribution. So we must know the salaries of the Ministry of Oil and how much it is the percentage added to the salary, as well as the Ministry of Higher Education and University Service allocations, with emphasis on the separation of the morning working hours for university employees from evening hours, because it will contribute to the absorption of a very large number of graduates and those with higher degrees and manpower, as some of the employees of the morning working salary for casting neighborhood and another evening, not to mention some of the paid salary of a political prisoner or from the families of martyrs, must also be Al-Nzarpim Kasat. They contain very large differences. We need to arrange housing conditions and address slums, and we must pay attention to the health situation, which is witnessing a significant decline in most aspects. Since it is, will our questions above remain unanswered, as are the questions of reference? And how long will we be patient before we rise up and take our rights through the legitimate democratic methods and improve the selection? Trade completes electronic window project. Date, edit, August 21, 2019, 1925. The Ministry of Commerce announced on Wednesday the completion of the electronic window project for the issuance of import and export licenses, and launched the work of the website of the International Trade Point of Iraq to register public sector companies, which allows to achieve benefits through the existence of an integrated database, allows the marketing of products and tenders and methods buying and selling. The General Company for Exhibitions and Commercial Services in the Ministry has completed the one window project with the aim of issuing import and export licenses and linking them to border ports through an electronic system that facilitates procedures on the owners of companies and investors, Trade Minister Mohammed Al-Ani said in a statement received. Al-Ani added that working according to the electronic system within the single window project comes within the framework of the implementation of the government program and facilitate the task of investors and companies in the introduction of goods and export of materials outside Iraq has been working through national companies and a short record period in comparison to the important role and many procedures that are related to the subject. On the same level, the Minister of Commerce, the launch of the site of the electronic point aimed at achieving many benefits and the impact of the advancement of the reality of the Iraqi economy and its openness to global markets, pointing out that these benefits come to create a complete database of electronic commerce in the field of marketing products. He also offered tenders, methods of sale and purchase, the names of local and foreign companies, the publication of commercial legislation, shipping of all kinds, insurance, banks and all related to internal and foreign trade. Ani, he said that the Minister of Trade also stressed, Iraq Trade Point will activate the work of the private sector and promote the growth of the Iraqi economy and will be the focus of all international goods, pointing out that the project needs infrastructure and database through which we can carry out electronic business. IMF warns governments against currency interventions aimed at improving trade balance. Date of edit, 21-2019-18. 22. The International Monetary Fund warned on Wednesday against governments seeking to weaken their currencies through monetary easing or market intervention, saying it would damage the functioning of the global monetary system and cause suffering to all countries. The IMF said in a post on its blog, which comes as bankers from global central banks prepare to meet this week in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that policy proposals for the use of monetary easing and direct purchases of currencies of other countries are unlikely to be effective. One should not strongly believe in the view that easing monetary policy can weaken a country's currency enough to achieve a continuous improvement in its trade balance through a diversion in spending, said Jita Gopinath, chief economist at the IMF, and IMF researchers Gustavo Adler and Luis Capito. Monetary policy alone is unlikely to produce significant and sustained reductions in the value needed to achieve that result. IMF, Trump's policies will not correct trade deficit.
August 21, 2019, 21 augustus 2019, 8:42
p.m. The number of readings. 20. Orbit Agency. Continue. Beijing, Reuters. The United States imposed tariffs on China and weakened the dollar by cutting interest rates will not correct the trade deficit, economists said on Wednesday. In an unusually frank language, experts' views appeared to target U.S. President Donald Trump, who has called for the Federal Reserve to continue to cut interest rates to weaken the dollar and stimulate the economy, as well as impose a set of tariffs on China to reduce the deficit, which he describes as theft. The IMF's chief economist, Jita Gopinath, stressed that U.S. policies are counterproductive and will not produce the desired results and will slow the global economy. Gopinath warned in a blog titled Taming the Currency Flurry, prepared in collaboration with IMF researchers, Gustavo Adler and Luis Capito, that mutual tariff increases are unlikely to reduce trade imbalances, because it mainly leads to the diversion of trade to other countries. Instead, these steps are likely to hurt domestic and global growth because they will undermine business and investment confidence, disrupt global supply chains, and raise product and consumer costs, she said. She pointed out that any plans to weaken the value of the U.S. currency difficult to implement and will probably be ineffective, adding that putting pressure on the central bank will not achieve that goal. The authors also warned that should not pay much attention to the view that easing monetary policy will weaken the country's currency in a way that leads to a permanent improvement in the balance of trade, stressing that monetary policy alone will not lead to a permanent devaluation of the currency, which is necessary to achieve that result, especially in 12 months. Trump has imposed stiff tariffs on Chinese goods worth $250 billion and plans to impose new tariffs on imports of $300 billion in 2 more rounds on September 1st and December 15th. Though the IMF and others warned that Trump's trade war was slowing global growth, and with signs of a possible contraction in the U.S. economy, Trump had stepped up attacks on the Fed and China. Last month, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, again lowered its outlook for global growth and said trade tension would make 2020 risky as tariffs could further slow China's economy.